My name is Alex Pennington, and we are the Aspiring Writers United. Is it possible for you to actually get published? Is that a realistic goal? I bet if you go on the internet right now and search that question, you can find a dozen articles about the market. It's so overcrowded. There's no new original ideas. It is so difficult for new writers to break in. You can find 100 articles about why it's impossible. But the simple answer is yes, it is possible for you to be published. The same people who write all these articles about how it's impossible to get published are also going and sitting down and watching Netflix, which is literally full of stories that have been adapted in the television shows. Every single time you watch an episode or a movie, that's someone who accomplished your dream, who thought that it was impossible to make it as a writer, and they did it. Is it difficult to get published? Yes, it's very difficult. In fact, you're probably going to have quite a few years where you're not published. If your goal is to get published in 6 months, you're in the wrong field. You guys need to play the long game. It's possible to get published eventually. It's possible to get published if you keep writing. But no, it's probably not possible to get published in 6 months. I mean, honestly, that's probably about the length of time you're going to need to write a good manuscript. Probably. And so no, don't set your goal at, hey, I need to get published as soon as possible. Make your goal, I want to get published eventually. There's so many people who, though, do just tout this propaganda that it's impossible to be published. I hear it all the time. I see it all the time in my Facebook group. I'm sorry, but if your mentality is that it's impossible to get published, you're never going to get published. You just can't have that kind of mindset. You also can't have a mindset of, I need to get published as soon as possible, and that it's possible to be published in 6 months. It's possible to get published in a month. Because that kind of mindset just sets you up for disappointment. So like I said, you need to have this mindset of, I'm going to get published eventually. But you need to believe that this is possible. It's a mixture of, hey, I don't want you to be pessimistic about publishing, but also I don't want you to be overly optimistic. I need you to be just optimistic. Don't be super crazy optimistic. Because man, what's going to happen when you get some criticism? Whenever your editor, yes, you should hire an editor, when they say, hey, I like your writing, I even kind of like the story, but I think that you need to start over from scratch and try again. There are two types of people who take criticism from editors. The first type says, I'm done. I'm obviously not meant to be a writer. This was a terrible idea and I've just wasted my money. Or you say, okay, so these are the things that you like about my manuscript and these are the things that you don't like about my manuscript. What you've given me is a blueprint for success. If I hire you again, say 6 months, and I can make these things that you like better, and I can get rid of these things that you don't like, what you're telling me is that I'm going to have a good book. No, it might not be a perfect book, but you know what to do now. Half of being a writer is just figuring out what to write, because it's like, you don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I mean, if you sat down at a piano and tried to play it right now without ever taking a lesson, just listening to piano music, could you do it? Could you actually sit down at a piano and just bust out some Beethoven? No. So stop thinking that you should be able to write a perfect manuscript. Writing is difficult though. And I get it, man. There is a lot of discouragement out there. Especially if you start listening to people who say, you have such a small chance. Look at all these other authors. Look at all the other competitors you have. It's like, yeah, if you focus on the negative, you're going to feel negative about your writing. Instead of that, what I think that you should do, if you are feeling negative about your writing, that you're not good enough, that you don't have a good shot at publication, go look at a bookshelf, go to a library, go look at some of the newest books coming out, and just remember, every single author that you're looking at right now was in your shoes, and they thought that they would never make it. They thought that it was impossible. And I would bet you $1,000 that they read a bunch of articles that told them how impossible it was. And they had 100 people also tell them, it's pretty difficult to become a published writer. You probably won't succeed. But man, if you just keep on writing, if you just keep going, I promise you, you will succeed one day. Might not be tomorrow, might not be in 6 months, but you will succeed.